Queenslanders in the Murray-Darling Basin are tonight absorbing the details of a blueprint that has the potential to dramatically change their futures. A long-awaited guide to restore the ailing river system has finally been released, and it's recommended water allocations to farmers be slashed. While conservationists are pleased, growers fear devastation, not only for themselves, but the communities they live in. To find out about the implications for our state, I spoke with the Queensland Farmers Federation CEO, Dan Galligan, a short time ago. Dan Galligan, under this plan, how much will irrigators in Queensland have their water allocations cut by?
The Murray-Darling Basin Authority is predicting that the Queensland system will need to cut its irrigation allocations for the Murray-Darling Basin part, at least from between 27 and 37% of its irrigation. Now, what that means is different for each valley, and each irrigation valley will apply their cutbacks differently, and the additional information we've learnt out of the authority today is those ranges of cutbacks will be quite severe in some valleys. For instance, the Condamine Ballon, a very profitable irrigation area, could have a cutback up to 45%, just below 50% of their irrigation allocation. Likewise for the Warrego, and around 25% for the border rivers. So some of our best irrigation country will suffer significant cutbacks as a result of this plan if it goes through as it stands.
Those cuts are much deeper than we were expecting, I guess. What impact will that have on irrigators?
Look, they are very significant cuts. There's been a lot of speculation for the last couple of years as this plan was developed, and it's been very hard to try and measure where it would end up landing. What it means is that there's going to be a lot of difficulty in moving into a new irrigation sector, essentially, and the government is allocating money to assist individual irrigators to try and meet what is essentially a new capped irrigation. What we also learnt today is that so far those new caps will need to be applied by 2014. The government has actually only allocated enough money to meet about 2/3 of that cutback, so they haven't allocated enough money for either water use efficiency, new irrigation infrastructure, or indeed buying water back off irrigators. They've only allocated 2/3 of the amount of money they would need, and additionally, and most importantly, they haven't actually allocated or measured how they will assist those communities in those irrigation areas deal with this enormous social and economic change that will come as a result of these cutbacks.
So how are the futures looking then for irrigators in these regions and for the communities that rely on that industry?
I'd have to say the irrigation sector really, as their communities, wants some certainty out of this planning process, and that's why for the last 3 years we've all supported the concept of a new plan to provide certainty for the sector, for the communities and for investment in the sector. The challenge now is to draw the right balance between an environmental outcome and an outcome that supports the economies in these regional communities that have relied on irrigation. If we get it right, that's a positive. At the moment, we're only seeing the environmental outcomes, and we've got to balance this discussion up so that we can also sustain the communities as well.
Based on these water allocation cuts that have been flagged today, what kind of job losses would we be expecting in southern Queensland?
Yeah, look, they will be significant. We are talking hundreds and potentially thousands of people. The authority themselves have announced today that the cutbacks that they're predicting, which could be up to 3,500 to 4,000 gigalitres across the entire basin, would reduce the agricultural output of the Murray-Darling Basin by $1 billion. For those individual communities of St George and Dirranbandi and Gundawindi and Dalby and all those communities out there that have relied on agriculture and irrigation for decades to support their economies, the impact for them, specifically of a 30 to 40% cutback, will be huge.
There's a consultation process that begins now. Do you expect the state government to go into bat for you?
We've been working with the state government up until now and will continue to do so, and they do need to go into bat for Queensland. The outcomes for these communities could be devastating, and the role of implementing these cutbacks into new water plans falls to the feet of the state. So it falls to Queensland and the Queensland government to consider the best way to implement what will be a new and dramatic shift for the irrigation sector in Queensland and support the communities that have supported the economy up until now. So yes, there's a lot of work to be done here for the Queensland state government.
Dan Galligan, thank you.
My pleasure.
And the Murray-Darling Basin Authority will hold public forums later this month in St George, Dalby and Goondiwindi.